Hey guys, today I'd like to talk about long travel electric mountain bikes. And basically these are bikes that have 180 millimeters of travel in the front and back. The idea here is that when you have a lot of travel in the front and back, the pedaling efficiency is not nearly as good. And so because the bike's an electric bike, you can offset some of that pedaling inefficiency with the motor, and hence have a bike that'll perform aggressively on downhills and not have to pay the penalty for pedaling up. So that's what I want to talk about. I mean, should you really, if you're going to get an electric mountain bike, should you get one of these bikes? And probably the flagship in this category would be the Specialized Turbo Kenevo. That's K Kenevo, which has 180 millimeters front and rear travel. Another popular bike in this category is the Canyon Torque-On, which has 180 millimeters front and rear travel. There are other bikes that are close, but have less than 180 millimeters of travel that some people may call long travel e-mountain bikes. But basically, those are the bikes I'm talking about here. And I'm not trying to encourage you to either get one or not get one. I just want to share my experience and the real, what I perceive to be as the trade-off you need to be comfortable with if you're going to get one of these. Now, to give you a little background, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine who had an electric road bike, he wanted to get an electric mountain bike. And so we looked into it, and at the time, we ran up and on a bike, a Bulls E-Core Evo EN Di2 27.5 bike. This bike was very well spec'd out. It had electronic shifting. It had a Fox X2 rear shock. It had a Lyric front fork. It had a 700 watt-hour battery, which at the time was very rare. It was an aluminum bike, so it was heavy, but it also had 180 millimeters front and rear travel. And the bike was selling new at a significant discount. I mean, it was almost 50% of the original MSRP of the bike. And so, he got the bike, and he and I put the bike together and, got it all running. Everything worked great. The bike, performed, all the components and everything, worked really well. No issues there. And because he was new to electronic mountain biking, he asked me to keep the bike for a week or so and ride it and get it dialed in for him and just make sure there was nothing unusual or out of place on the bike. And of course, I was ecstatic to do that and had the bike for a little over a week. And during that time, probably put 100, 150 miles on it. Since then, he and I have ridden together quite a bit, and I've ridden the bike even more since then. Just a part of riding, swapping up bikes and helping him service the bike and do some maintenance on the bike. So I've got some seat time on a 180 front and rear travel bike. Now, from my experience, what I found is that bike, when you get it to the top of the hill and you aim it down, it's fantastic. It's exhilarating to go down on that bike. Its ability to corner, to handle jumps, also, and it especially shines when you have really big drops. I mean, the bike just seems to completely absorb anything you throw at it in terms of, hard-hitting technical stuff. So just a great downhill machine. Just performed, really well. But the trade-off is that as I was pedaling it in non-downhill situations, in other words, more moderate, flowy type trails, flat trails, uphill, I found that I had to really sort of work the bike a lot harder. I mean, that extra suspension, you seem to wallow into the suspension, and you had to really sometimes hustle the bike, even with the electric motor, to get it going. And I also found that I just didn't enjoy the ride experience as much with that bike because I just had to deal with the extra travel And like I said, tons of fun when you're going downhill. But in my riding, I mean, you know, most of the time that I spend on the bike is not, you know, hard-hitting downhill. I wish it was, but you know, you have to climb back up, and you got to get to there, and you know, you got to deal with some other stuff if you're just riding a regular trail. So there was a trade-off. Then I began, you know, looking at other bikes, and what you primarily see out on the trail are bikes that have, you know, 140 to 150 rear travel and front travel somewhere in the 150 to 160 range. So, you know, most bikes that are being sold, and most people, assuming they're, you know, they're voting their preference and their likes with their purchases. I mean, most people are gravitating toward these bikes that have 140 to 150 in the rear and, you know, 160 or so in the front. Now that's giving up, you know, over an inch in the rear and almost a half inch in the front. Now, you would normally think that that would be a huge deal, and it is somewhat of a deal, but it's really minimized, I think, by the weight of the electric mountain bike. So what happens is you know, on a regular bike, you know, the longer the wheelbase and the more travels, the more stable the bike is, and you know, it seems like, you know, it's you know, a big difference the bigger those differences are. But on an electric mountain bike, because it's got that extra weight, when you start going downhill, you know, that weight compensates for a shorter wheelbase and for less travel, just in that the bike is going to be stable with the weight, and you don't need to try to get stability with the wheelbase and with the suspension, or you don't need it as much. It would be what I believe. So once again, not trying to tell you to get a long travel electric mountain bike or not get a long travel. It really should depend on what you're going to use it for, how comfortable you are with it. But I certainly wouldn't buy one of those bikes and just do a parking lot test on it. If you're going to get one, I would definitely have it out on the trail, you know, and ride it, you know, 8 or 9 miles anyway, just to get a feel for what it's like and the pedaling. Now, I don't have a long travel electric mountain bike, so you know, I'm probably, you know, biased in that I don't have one, and you know, just riding someone else's bike, you know, probably doesn't qualify me to be any kind of expert or anything. But anyway, those are my thoughts, and it's something I think if you're getting an electric mountain bike and considering a long travel, you really ought to explore and look into and make sure you're comfortable with it before you pull the trigger. Like I said, just my thoughts. I'm sure many of you disagree, and you know, would welcome your comments down in the comment section. But otherwise, I hope I've given you something to think about here, and I'll see you guys at the top.